Hi, I'm Jeff Stark. I'm a biblical counselor with the Life Enrichment Christian Counseling Center and the Philadelphia Renewal Network and John Applegate and Associates. Those are three separate individual biblical counseling centers in the Delaware Valley, providing Christian counseling for people from Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and even sometimes as far away as New York. We're free to be seeing people who might be wanting biblical counseling, and we're certainly able to do it as well over the internet through way of FaceTime and by way of Skype. Let us know if we can be helpful to you if you're interested in biblical counseling. Some time ago, I had a client come to me with what was an overwhelming and difficult problem with worry and anxiety. We spent a lot of time talking about that over the last year or so. He's getting much better at it, fortunately, and through good counseling and the work of the Holy Spirit in his life, he's doing well. Recently, he came to see me again, but had another issue come up in his family, of which he was describing to me in detail and explaining to me that this new matter that had come up in his family was one that was creating a lot of worry for him and anxiety. And I took that time to remind him of what we had looked at in, for example, Matthew chapter 6 about Jesus and his very, very helpful instruction about how to deal with anxiety. And there was one thing in particular that I wanted to not only remind him of, but also give him a little bit of a story of how I had come to understand what Jesus was saying and how in one particular time in my life when I was able to put it into practice successfully. But here's what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. He starts with this matter of anxiety in verse 25. But in verse 34, this is 33 and 34, this is what Jesus says. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So what I'd like to do today is just look at that verse. There's a lot of things that we could talk about from these verses and others. Instructions from Jesus and the apostles about how to deal with worry and anxiety, certainly a very, very common issue that confronts Christians, all Christians. But there's one verse that I have found to be extremely helpful to me that Jesus mentions here, and that is the idea of taking one day at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I have found that to be extremely practical and very, very helpful for me as I've tried to manage and control my anxieties. And here's the story that I told my client about a time that I could have been very, very worried and very, very anxious, but taking this passage to heart and knowing how to practice it, which I'll tell you about in a minute, it proved to be very, very helpful to me. So here's the story that I told my client. I said to him that about a month or two ago, my wife and I were going to take a vacation anniversary trip, and we were going to splurge and go to Italy. We were leaving on a Wednesday morning flight to fly into Rome, and the story begins with me being on the phone with a friend of mine Saturday night, Saturday before Wednesday, and we were chit-chatting about something, and my friend asked me, "Hey, Jeff, how's your passport?" And I thought, oh no, passport? Oh, I forgot all about my passport. Oh no. Well, we hung up and I went downstairs, grabbed my metal box, pulled my passport out, looked at my passport, and my passport had like expired 5 years previously. So this is Saturday night, and I'm supposed to get on a plane Wednesday morning to fly to Italy with my wife for my anniversary getaway. So I started to get very anxious and very worried and very nervous. And what am I going to do? And how am I going about this? The reports are it takes months to get this done. I should have started this 3 to 6 months ago. Is it possible for me to get my passport in such a quick period of time? I didn't know. Called a friend of mine who's very, very resourceful in all kinds of practical things. And he just said to me, "Jeff, what you're going to have to do is go down to the place that you get passports. There's a place downtown Philadelphia, and I live right outside Philadelphia, and you're going to have to see if you can get a passport on that day." So I thought to myself, well, tonight's Saturday. I can't, surely that place isn't open on Saturday. Tomorrow's Sunday. Surely the government's place is not going to be open on Sunday. And Monday happened to be a holiday. And they're certainly not open on holidays. So that left me Tuesday to get a passport for an airplane flight that I was supposed to get on Wednesday. And I just, for about an hour, I was terribly nervous, very upset at myself about, am I going to be able to get on this airplane? But I can't, certainly with my current passport. So anyway, what I did was I remembered what Jesus said here, and that is, do not worry about tomorrow, but take one day at a time. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Now, I've learned over the years what that means and how to go about doing that, and so I started practicing the things that I had learned about those verses and how I had practiced that in previous anxious times. So here's what I did. I said it was Saturday night. I've got people over at the house. Actually, this was all taking place when we had company. And I said, there's nothing that I can do about Tuesday on Saturday night, so I bundled it up with prayers. I cast my anxieties upon the Lord, and I did not think about Tuesday when I was to go down and get my passport. All Saturday night, didn't worry about it, didn't think about it at all, taking one day at a time. And I had a great Saturday night with my family and with the friends who came to dinner that night. I was carefree and anxious-free and worry-free because I had cast it upon the Lord, and I was not going to think about Tuesday on Saturday night. So Sunday morning wakes up, and we go about the normal day of Sunday. But first thing on my mind was, what if I don't get my passport? And I found myself worrying and getting anxious, and I did the same thing. I bundled my concerns and my anxious concerns about Tuesday and my passport, and I said, Lord, you know what I need? I'm going to give it to you, like 1 Peter chapter 5 says, cast all your anxieties upon the Lord because he cares for you. I took it, I threw it on the Lord, and then I built a wall. There was a wall between me and thoughts of Tuesday, and I was not going to go over that wall all day Sunday, and I didn't. I said, what can I do about Tuesday on Sunday? There's nothing that I can do, number one. Number two, God says he'll be there the next day when I need him, and he'll take care of me, whatever that means. I don't know. We'll find out on Tuesday. But I'm not going to worry about it today because there's nothing that I can do today about Tuesday. So practicing that, keeping behind that wall of going over into thinking about tomorrow, and particularly Tuesday, I had a great Sunday. I don't think I ever thought about it because I just refused to think about it because taking Jesus literally, don't worry about tomorrow. So that was a great day too. Now, wake up on Monday when I would normally be downtown to go about doing these sorts of things, but Monday's a holiday. So I wake up, first thing that's on my mind is Tuesday and about the passport. But I say to myself, same thing, I can't do anything on Monday, on a holiday in particular, about Tuesday. So I put that wall up again. I prayed, tossed my anxieties over that wall, said, God, take care of me tomorrow. Help me just to have a good day today and be mindful of your love for me today and walk in line with the truth of the gospel and not be worried about tomorrow because you've said literally, do not worry about tomorrow. Well, I cast those anxieties over the wall, and I didn't try to get over the wall, beyond, into the wall, through the wall. I just stayed on to Monday, and I had a great holiday. I don't know if it's Labor Day or Memorial Day. It's one of those, and I can't remember which. I guess it would have been Labor Day. Anyway, so Monday, holiday, we go to parades, and we have people over, and we cook out. We do those kinds of things. I had a great Monday, and no one would have known that I didn't have a passport because I just wasn't thinking about Tuesday, the passport, getting on a plane, or maybe not. I said, that's none of my business. I'm staying behind the wall thinking about the day. I'll think about that tomorrow. So Monday night rolls around, and I make plans to be downtown in Philadelphia. I'm going to leave my house around 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get in line in this building around 4 o'clock because I want to be really up front, up close to the door, and then we'll see what happens. So I wake up Tuesday morning. I'm starting to get anxious about driving down there, finding a parking space, getting in line. But, I'm in the shower, and I'm thinking, I'm not even going to worry about it now. I'm going to give it to the Lord. I'm going to take a shower, get dressed, and I'm not going to worry about it until I get down there. So I take a shower, I get dressed, I pick up my papers that I have to hand off to the passport place if they're going to take me at all. and I pack them away, and I get in the car, and I find myself starting to get anxious about what's going to happen when I get down there. But I say to myself, I'm not going to worry about that. Jesus says, take one day at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow. But you know what? I'm not even going to worry in this next hour. I'm just going to take 1 minute at a time. And I'll worry about that and get concerned about that and give some thought to that when I get down there. When I'm driving down there right now, I'm simply going to stay behind the wall and not be concerned or worried in particular about what happens when I get down there. Get down there, it's still dark. I'm driving around looking for a parking space, and I'm starting to get anxious. And I say to myself, don't get anxious. Don't worry about what happens in the next hour, 2 or 3. Park, find out where the line is going to be, and then I'll start to think about it. So I find a parking space, and then I walk up to the line, and the line is out front of the government building. I can't read, passport building. I don't know which one it is, but I am third in line, and that makes me very happy. And I start to think about now and start to pray. Okay, Lord, here we are. I'm asking you to open those doors. I'm asking you to somehow, if I've got to sit in that room all day long and wait for someone who doesn't show up and they'll call my name or my number, whatever, I'm ready to sit here all day, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's in your hands, and you can do as you please here. But help me not to be worried and anxious. So I'm just trusting the Lord as I'm standing in line, sitting in line actually on a wall in front of the building. And I turn to the person number 2, who is second in line, and she tells me that she works at this building. I say, really? Wow, what's going to happen? Tell me. She said, well, first of all, in the summertime, this line goes all the way around the building. I go, whoa. People getting their passports? Yeah, the line goes around the building. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm glad I got up early. I don't know if it's going to be around the building today, but I'm glad to be number 3. So what happens when we go in there? She says, well, did you make an appointment? I said, no, I didn't. I forgot all about it. She said, well, here's what's going to happen. They're going to call us to come in. We're going to take a number. And when your number is called, you'll go to a booth. The person will look over your papers, and they'll charge you a fee of whatever. You'll write a check. And if everything's good to go, that person will tell you probably come back later in the day and get your passport. That sounds really good. Whoa, getting my passport in 1 day. So I thought, so I'm pretty happy right now, but I'm in line till probably around 7 or 8 o'clock. I don't know. Lines are getting longer, but I'm at number 3. I look up at number 1. Guy number 1 has a stack of applications this high. And I came to realize that you can hire somebody, a professional, to fill out your papers, bring your application, get in line for you. And in case you have to work and you can't do it, you can hire a professional. That's a couple $100, maybe $300 to do that. And I gave some thought to doing that because I was desperate. But I thought, no, I can't afford that. I'm going to get in line, and I'm going to be one of the first ones in line. But that guy had a stack of applications and making a lot of money that morning, going to the passport place on behalf of probably 20 to 25 people. Anyway, they open the doors, we file in, single file. Number 1 gets a number, number 2 gets a number, I pull down my number, I'm number 3, I guess, something like that. And then I sit down and I wait. I hear somebody go, number 1, and number 1 guy gets up and he goes to the booth. I hear number 2, I see number 2 get up and go to the booth. And then I hear them call my number. So I get up, and I'm trying not to be anxious. I'm trusting the Lord. I'm trying to. It's hard. And I go to the booth. A nice person behind the booth. You have your application. He looks over the application. Everything's good to go. No questions. Nothing needing to be done. He said, well, Mr. Stark, this is going to cost you X amount of money. And I say, I'm happy. Do you take checks? He said, yes. And I wrote a check. Who do I make it out to? He told me. And I handed over the check. And he said to me, well, we're going to process your application probably within the next hour or 2. And we're going to call you back when you can come back and get your application today. I said, great. That's really good news. So I walk out, and I am delighted. So I get in the car and I start to drive home, and I'm getting a call from an 800 number. And I don't know. I don't pick up phone numbers from 800, but I don't pick it up. Drive down the road another mile or 2, and I get the same 800 number call. And I pick it up. I go, hello. And they go, hi, Mr. Stark. Yes, this is the passport place. I can't remember the name. And we have to ask you to come back. Now my anxiety is beginning to grow a little bit. And I'm thinking, what's the problem? And fortunately, the man said to me, well, I charged you $85 and I should have charged you $95 or $105, and we're asking you to come back and write us another check. I said, I'll be very happy to do that. I'm going to turn around. I'll come right back. And he says, well, when you walk in, wave to me and I'll bring you up right away and we'll take care of the matter. I said, that's great. Turn around, drive back, park. A little bit harder to find a parking space now, but I find one. Walk into the building. The man sees me. I wave. He says, come forward. I write him a new check. He says, okay, again, we'll call you when the passport's ready. And I leave and I go and do some shopping. Eventually I get a phone call. Your passport's available. I go downtown. I walk in where you can receive the passport without having to get in line. And they hand me my passport and I say, thank you very, very much. And I walk out of that building having a passport in less than one day. And my wife and I got on that airplane. We had a great time in Italy, and coming back, I had the right passport. But here's why I tell you that story. I had been practicing a long time in other ways that I could maybe do in other videos. I had taken a long time to learn how to practice taking one day at a time and not worrying and being anxious about tomorrow. Now, I'm only pointing out one matter about anxiety, and that is that particular concern about not worrying about tomorrow, taking one day at a time. There's a whole lot that's taught to us from the scriptures over and above that, but this video is just talking about this one particular instruction. Do not worry about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Take one day at a time. As I've learned how to practice that, what I do is I take my anxious concerns and I throw them. I'm told to throw them in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. I throw them upon the Lord. And I can do that and I can cast them into Him. I'm not throwing them into space, which maybe non-Christians would do, is they just say, okay, I'm going to throw it out there and I'm going to ignore it. I'm throwing it, it says, upon the Lord because He cares for me. So I've practiced learning how to take my anxious concerns with prayers and petitions in Philippians chapter 4, and Peter throwing them upon the Lord because He cares for me. So they're in good hands. I don't have to worry about it because He can worry about it for me. He wants me to cast and be anxiety and worry free for that particular day. I've learned how to do that. When I throw them in my mind, I build a wall. And there's a wall there, and on the other side of the wall is tomorrow, and on this side of the wall is today. And what I've learned how to do is to stay behind that wall. It takes practice, it takes skill, it takes self-discipline. But I have learned that I've given those things to the Lord. He wants me to be concerned about today's troubles. And as I have learned how to do that through practice and developing a skill of sorts in doing that, that has really given me a lot more peace than I would typically have as a member of the human race. I grew up in a very sinful, dysfunctional, alcoholic home, and I had a lot of anxieties and concerns and a lot of worries, and I am a chronic worrier. But as I've taken to heart the things that the Lord has told, in particular, one thing in particular, taking one day at a time, throwing my concerns upon the Lord, He'll take care of them. He loves me. He's capable of doing that. Putting my faith and trust in Him. And then building a wall and not going beyond that wall into tomorrow. I have had a lot more peace and joy in my life by virtue of my learning how to do that. And actually, quite honestly, doing it every day. Seems like every day and every week and every month, there's something to be worried about in the future, but I've continued to try to practice that, and to the degree that I've been successful, God has given me that peace that surpasses all understanding, which is said to be given to me in the context of casting my anxieties really upon the Lord. And as I've done that, He's promised to give me that peace, and He has, and I've become a much, much more peaceful person than I have been growing up. By the way, one more thing. As I was trying to illustrate in my passport story, sometimes it's even necessary, sometimes you really have to take 1 minute at a time. real quickly, under a minute. There was 2018 was a very, very difficult year for me because I had some physical problems. I had a knee replacement, a broken tibia, a broken hip, and it was undiagnosed for 3 or 4 months, and then I had surgery, and and I was on crutches for about 10 or 11 months. It was a very, very, very difficult time for me. And there were many, many days when I just had to take 1 minute at a time and give the next minute and the next hour to the Lord and just ask Him to help me to get from point A to point B on those darn crutches. And so there's sometimes when we can take one day at a time, but there are times, and a lot of you will understand this, when you just really have to take 1 minute at a time and cast the next minute or even just the next hour upon the Lord, trusting that He'll take care of you when you and your crutches get to that hour. So I hope that's helpful. Again, that's not going to settle anxiety down completely. There's a lot more that's given to us from the scriptures about what to do and how to do it. God is very merciful to give us these instructions. But there is one instruction that we were paying attention to today, and that is learning how to follow His instructions in Matthew chapter 6. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I hope that's helpful.